Welcome to Just Energy Radio with your host, naturopath and medical intuitive, Dr. Rita Louise. We have learned from Einstein's theory that matter and energy are one. Physicists believe that all systems in nature have their own particular way of vibrating. From the swinging of a pendulum to the waves of the ocean to the light that brightens the sky each day, each of these oscillates at its own unique rate. The same holds true for every thought, feeling, event, or word we speak. Each has its own frequency or rate of vibration. What many of us don't realize is when we take everything in our universe down to its simplest form, it is all just energy. Join Dr. Rita Louise on a journey through time and space where past, present, and future collide. Today, what you believe may be called into question. What we want to know is, who made up the rules? Be brave and step outside the box. We are about to turn our world upside down and venture into the unknown. Hold on. We are departing our own beliefs and entering alternative realms. Enjoy the possibilities.
Hello, and welcome to Just Energy Radio. I'm your host, Dr. Rita Louise, and thank you all for tuning into the show today. Just Energy Radio is brought to you by soulhealer.com. It can be heard every Thursday evening from 8 to 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, live on the Inception Radio Network. Well, I have a few announcements to make. And so for people that have purchased my new book, Man-Made, The Chronicles of Our Extraterrestrial Gods, either in the hardback, or the paperback, or the Kindle edition, we have just re-released the book before that, Dark Angels, an insider's guide to ghost spirits and attached entities, both in a paperback, an updated paperback, as well as we have finally released it in a Kindle version. And so now that is available on Amazon.com. That's Dark Angels, an insider's guide to ghost spirits and attached entities. And you can learn all kinds of things about those spooky things like ghosts, except you get to hang out with me because I tell a lot of stories about my experiences as a psychic investigator with a ghost hunting group. And you have to understand, I'm scared of the dark. And so it makes for some very interesting narratives. Speaking of ghosts, if you live in the Texas area, there's two really great ghosty shows coming up. One, which is this Saturday, which is the Texas Para-Unity Festival, which is being held in Waxahachie, Texas. It's from 10 a.m. to who knows what time, because there's going to be an investigation afterwards. And you can find out more information about that on Eventbrite. I feel really bad I don't have the webpage about that, but if you type in Texas Para-Unity Fest, it will take you to the page. And then in 2 weeks, April 6th, I think, is the History, Haunts, and Legend Conference in spooky Jefferson, Texas. I've been there speaking for the last 7 years. This year, I'm actually going to be speaking about UFOs and mythology, a very interesting combination. And that is just a really, 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 really fun show to go to. Jefferson is the cool town. It actually has been listed as one of the top 10 most haunted cities in the United States. So go Jefferson, Spooksville, USA. Let's see, a couple of other little things. If you have missed any of the shows, Just Energy Radio shows, you can check out our archives on the Just Energy Radio page, www.justenergyradio.com, where you can sign up for our weekly newsletter, or you can like Just Energy Radio on Facebook, or you can listen to the shows. We YouTube all the shows now, and that would be on the Just Energy Radio YouTube channel. And if you go to the channel, subscribe to it. Come on. We're almost at 900 subscribers. And so I'm very excited about that. Oh, and then also one other way you can listen to the show is to download the little Inception Radio app for your smartphone. So you can listen in your car, listen at work while you're supposed to be working. There's a chat function in there. So you could chit chat with everybody while you're supposed to be working, not driving, but working. It's okay. Anyway, So let me tell you a little bit about our guest. We actually today, you know how some things just fall in alignment. You have that whole synchronicity thing going on. Well, again tonight, today is kind of like the UFO show this week. Anyway, in the first hour, we're going to be talking to Patty Greer about crop circles and sacred sites. And in the second hour, we're going to be speaking with Ed Komarick about alien contact and exopolitics. I don't know. It's going to be a great show. But let me tell you a little bit about Patty, and we're going to find out all about crop circles. Patty Greer had a life-changing out-of-body experience in the center of a UK crop circle in 2007. And that was the day her perception of reality was forever changed. She saw and felt things she had never experienced before. She wasn't alone. Within 2 years of the day, Greer produced 4 full-feature documentaries with no training, experience, or previous interest in filmmaking whatsoever. Her movies, focus on UFOs, crop circles, and 2012. She's won 6 prestigious awards and experienced more than 100 UK crop circles personally since 2006. Ooh, that's a lot of crop circles. So from www.pattygreer.com, Patty Greer. Hey, Patty, how are you?
Good evening. Hello, everybody.
Thanks so much for coming on the show. I mean, I think you're, I don't know, I want to hear it. 100 crop circles? I mean, you don't live in the UK, do you?
No, I went over every summer once I started. It was kind of got me going, and I just couldn't wait till the next summer. I live in America, but I went in 2006 for the first time, and then in 2007 and 2008 I went for 9 weeks by myself each summer. Now that's some serious devotion. And I did things that I normally would not do. And I'm not sure if I'd do it again down the road, but to really be seeing the crop circles, you need to get above them. And I was flying in the most ridiculous little microlight planes, and the pilots would look at you and say, door on or door off. I'm sorry. I'm like, what? And of course, they intimidated me in the beginning by saying, well, all the professionals don't want a door on their side. So it really quite surprised me that I was flying around pretty often in the windy, rainy English summer weather with no door on my side, 2,000-3,000 feet up, filming the crop circles.
Well, I bet that was better than going to like Six Flags or something.
Yeah, this is for real. And, yeah, it was really surprising. I mean, I kept finding myself in instances where I was going, what am I on? Like, it was almost like I was on a magic carpet ride from the first crop circle I went in. And I think that that's kind of how they plan it, you know. It's so mystical. Like when you go to a lot of people, Egypt or the Maya lands, once you get that real solid hit of deep spiritual nature on the planet, it's not like anybody could ever tell you down the road it didn't happen. Mm-hmm. That's the difference between believing and knowing, right?
I hear you. In your bio, it said that you had, all right, hang on, I'm going to see if I can find it. You had like a life-changing experience in a crop circle. So what happened?
In 2007, it was when I went back for the real summer. I mean, 2006, I was just kind of scratching and sniffing the surface, and I was hooked. So 2007, I went back for 9 weeks. And one of the first crop circles I laid in, I'm pretty sure it was at the bottom of Sugar Hill. I was all by myself, and I was in a rental car, and I found the Silent Circle, which is the research center, and they have push pins on where the crop circles are located, and a very vague instruction. But if you see little heads bobbing up in the fields, I would count on somebody got there first. You know, you could see little heads. Otherwise, it's just a huge acreage of wheat, very, very difficult on the land to find a crop circle. So you either need to have GPS coordinates, or I would call them humorous directions to find the formations, such as when you're driving down the road, you'll all of a sudden see a tree with a broken branch. Climb over the fence there, count 5 tractor lines to the left, and just keep on going. Those are the kind of directions to find a crop circle. So it was always like a magical mystery tour. But the thing about the crop circles that really surprises me is that nobody's talking about them anymore. There is no doubt in my mind that many of them are real. And when I say real, I just mean that they are not of this world. They're not made by humans, all of them. And when I'm walking into these tram lines, the tractor lines, you can feel it right before you get in, if you're sensitive, that all of a sudden, head to toe, goosebumps, chills on top of your head, hair standing up on the back of your neck. It is alarming. Your whole body lights up. And then when you get 20 feet further and you see this flawless weed swirled down to perfection with the center sprig or bouquet in the middle, it's breathtaking. So, have you ever been in a crop circle or looked at many photos, Rita?
I mean, I've looked at a lot of the pictures, but I haven't actually physically been in them. But the complexity of some of the ones that I've seen, you know, especially in the last, 5 years or so, I can't even imagine, short of having a team of people going into the field, that they could be made by man, because they look perfect.
Yes, and many of them are. So a lot of them, there's different varieties of crop circle images. Some of them are sacred geometry, which is really lovely to the brain. When we look at a sacred geometric image, it's symmetrical. There's a center, and then everything comes out from it, and the brain goes, this I can relax with. And the circle makers, whatever messages they are giving us, and I believe that they are, on a subconscious level, is coming through either the pictogram, a picture that they're doing, or the sacred geometry on a subconscious level. In the last 6 months, I made some really intense realizations, which for me, it's not just that physically they feel extremely otherworldly when you're in them or flying over them, but also I'm looking now at the historic crop circles. Do you remember in 2001, the alien face and the round disc?
Yeah.
Oh, it was huge. It was called Chilbolton. And it was in England, in Chilbolton, England, 2001. And it happened in August. And these scientists and computer people looked at the code of the binary round, and they deciphered the message as this. Do you remember they found that it was an ASCII code?
I remember that it was some kind of binary. They decided it was binary, but I don't recall either hearing what it said or that I remember what it said. So if you could refresh me, that'd be good.
It is really shocking, and I want you to keep in mind that this was August 20th, 2001, and in September 11th, 2001, do you remember what happened? 9/11.
The buildings went down.
This is a month before, and the ETs, in my opinion, said, and this is the exact decipherment, beware the bearers of false gifts and their broken promises. Much pain, but still time. Believe there is good out there. We oppose deception. Conduit closing. Whoa. Now, in my opinion...
Well, you know, and depending on how you view the truth behind 9/11, it's pretty interesting.
Yeah. The bearers of false gifts and their broken promises. And it's taking all the discipline in me not to just shout out the names. So, another interesting thing that happened right before the BP oil spill, and everybody remembers that, that it wasn't 6 months before that we had a very odd crop circle summer in 2009. Instead of all these sacred geometric patterns or Mayan calendars, instead it was birds and fish. And there's like 6 or 7 of each. And that was a really unusual summer where we had dolphins swimming in a swirl. We had weird squid and octopus, really obvious fish images, jellyfish. And then all of a sudden there were sparrows. There was an owl. There was a thunderbird and a phoenix. And it wasn't guess what they are? They were pictograms where you can see that that is a phoenix. That's a classic symbol. They were recognizable, and then within 6 months, we lost millions of birds and millions of fish with the BP oil spill.
Okay, let me ask you this, because I was under the impression, kind of being even though I can kind of talk UFOs and crop circles enough to be scary to anybody, I'm not an expert, but my impression was that, I don't know, there are one or two, maybe crop circles, per year or whatever, but it's not sounding like that's really the case. I mean, you're saying that there were like 6, but is that normal, or
there's an average? There's an average of 70 to 80 crop circles in Wiltshire, England, a 40 square mile radius between Glastonbury, the Avery Stone Circle, and Stonehenge. Almost every summer there's 70, 75 crop circles in that area alone. Last year in England, in 2012, there were 69 crop circles in Wiltshire, and there were 56 others documented in Argentina, Mexico, Brazil, Germany, Italy, Croatia, Estonia, Iran, America, Australia.
We actually had crop circles here.
These images are probably in a lot more places than people get to know, because nobody is flying over them in these silly little planes and taking pictures. It's very possible that there could be hundreds of thousands of crop circles every summer or every growing season, but if nobody's flying over them or walking into the field, they won't be documented. So whenever I talk about how many crop circles were documented in Wiltshire, England, I'm also imagining how many weren't. And there's many, many. What I believe, and this is after years of research, and I went in the crop circles 2006, 7, 8, 10, and 11. 5 different years, very long summers there, loving it. But I really don't have any doubt that there aren't real ones. And for some reason, the circle makers, and I have to say, in my opinion, to be correct on the radio, are these balls of light that I have photographed that are in my most recent movie so up close and precise, it is shocking. And not only, and this is really an over-the-top statement to make, not only are they made by balls of light, but the last movie that I made when I was trying not to make a movie, I met people that saw illuminated light beings with arms, legs, and head come out of the balls of light.
But are these balls of light big? And I saw that in the movie, big. And I was just kind of freaking out, but size-wise, are they big? They look kind of like, tennis balls in the movie, but, it's a little hard to get scale and proportion, from that image.
And I don't know how far away they were. They looked off in the distance. But the most alarming thing is that the images that my friend took while we were up on the night watch overlook, she had a 35 millimeter, and her photos are really incredible. And as the balls were sideways, we could see like a slice, almost like a cut out of a piece of pie was missing. And all of a sudden the ball turned, and it was what all those witnesses were talking about. It was a doorway in the ball of light where illuminated light beings came out. This is the most astounding story that anybody in England has heard about the crop circles, and I don't know why it always comes right to me like a magnet, but these guys said, my eyes don't lie. It's just my rational mind that tries to find a rational explanation. And then everywhere my boyfriend and I went in England, everybody that came and talked to us, including a 5-year-old child, said, oh, I don't want to talk about this. I want to talk about this crop circle I was in East Field the other day. I scared the daylights out of the man I was with because I told him, leave the camera home. I don't want to bring the camera to England this summer. I just want to go play in the crop circles. No, I'll carry it. I said, no, seriously. They will make me make a movie. Please leave the camera home. Leave it. And we had this funny kind of joke about it, and he brought the camera, and sure enough, this unbelievable story presented itself 4 different times in different parts of England. And the way it was presented it was just like, come on, give me a break. But, the truth is I feel extremely grateful because it's come to me in a really large way, and it's not at all about me. I think that when I started going in the crop circles, I was dealing with a very bad case of mercury poisoning. And I was in such surrender to my life and so high in metal content in my body that for some reason I think I was able to really download effortlessly a lot of information quickly. Because when you spoke about my bio, I made 4 movies in 2 years, and it wasn't me. I wasn't trained. I had no idea what I was doing with that camera. I still
I hear you. Because sometimes it's like the information just needs to come through you.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I made a whole meditation set, like 4 half-hour meditations, and I had the whole thing, including the packaging, done in 6 days. 6 days. It was like, boop, I'm done. With music,
Like,
the whole thing. Information guide. I don't know. It just did. Just boom.
And in your dreams, did you find that you were getting information through your dreams? You'd wake up and go, aha.
I'm not a dream person. They just yap at me and they're like, you need to do this. It's like, oh, okay. No, do I have to do that now? Oh, yeah, you have, till the end of the week. They put me on very tight timelines. One of the things that I was thinking, because, well, one, I didn't realize that there were crop circles all over the place. But, one of the things that I really enjoy reading about and study is mythology. And, in British and Celtic mythology, there are a lot of stories of fairy folk, and I'm wondering if this phenomena with these balls of light have been going on for a really long time, and if that wasn't what people thought they were seeing, were these little fairy folks in the trees and in the woods kind of thing.
Exactly. Well, they used to call the crop circles the fairy rings.
Really? See, I just made that question up totally.
They did. When I go over to England, the elders always say, oh, yes, the fairy rings. Yeah. So speaking of fairies, when I was in England, I mean, really, I don't go over there with an outline or a notebook or a plan in the world. I have my camera, 40 rolls of film, and a lot of time. And when I went the last time, a musician said, come meet me at a fairy festival. And at first I was like, really? Come on. He said, oh, it's fantastic. It's off in the Cotswolds, and everybody's dressed as fairies, and they dance and prance around the lake and in the woods, and it's really fun, and a festival. So I went over there, and it was, of course, rainy, and I'm driving on the wrong side of the road, sitting on the other side of the car, and I hit curb after curb, but it was the hardest thing to get to. But when I finally got there, I realized that a lot of people in England are still living in the old ways. They have these ancient festivals, and it's not like over here where it's really a costume. For them, they've already got the outfit. They wear it once a year. And when I was over there, I didn't realize that I was going to be making a fairy film, which I am now. But I interviewed people that claim to be the Green Man of Avebury. I met this guy that's been the Green Man in the festivals for 26 years. And the Keeper of the Stones in Avebury. These people are hysterical, but I didn't have to get scripts or costumes or anything. And then when I met the Queen of the Elves, she was a hoot. Now my camera locked on the tripod is heavy. And she said, I'm going to take you somewhere special to do the interview. So we're walking through the forest, and my camera's getting heavy, and I'm trading shoulders, and finally I'm starting to moan, like, seriously, how far are we going? Finally, the woods open up, And there in the middle of the forest, some old tree had fallen, and somebody must have taken years to carve the most beautiful throne in the middle of nature. So when I'm over there, everything feels like magic. And whatever happened to me that day in the crop circle made it so that everything is pretty effortless with telling these stories. And in my opinion, it is of the magic of the elemental world and the ET world. When
but
I
think that people that are into it, I'm not really sure what the right way to phrase this is, but people that, they can recognize an authenticity and a sincerity and a level of understanding in other people, versus someone who's just there because it's cool. And I think people will open up. Like I had Nancy Red Star, who's indigenous, talks about sky people and stuff on the show. And she was like, you get it. And I'm like, yeah, I get it. And so she was just so happy because she didn't have to sit there and like make up something. And, and I just get that impression from you that people get you, and you get them, and it's not fake, and so it's easier for them to just open up to you.
Well, thank you. Yes, I think that when it comes to wisdom, most of us are pretty hungry now. And when we meet somebody who has something that we can learn from, or, as a filmmaker, something that I think is worth sharing with the world, it's always magic when you meet the right people. So I met a lot of people that live as if they are fairies. I met the Queen of the Elves. And then when I came back to America, I was living up in Telluride at 10,000 feet altitude, really up high in the woods, with lots of wildlife. So I found myself filming wildlife for 2 years constantly. And I filmed so many beautiful wild animals really up close. Most people should not do this. But I would do these funny little dance moves with my arms, and they would just stare and stare and stare. So the movie is all telepathic wildlife, and it's called We Want Our Planet Back. The wildlife and the children of this planet are noticing what's going on, and that's what this movie's about.
That's cool.
And they're not going, oh, thank you for taking such a good job here, doing such a good job here. Instead, they're going, we want our planet back. Mm-hmm. So here I am. I'm really fighting the script because I'm trying to make a children's movie. La, 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 la. But, in the background is chemtrails. And then the song is, no more GMOs. So it's an interesting dichotomy to know this much, want to make a difference, and want to communicate to the children. So, yeah.
I don't know. It sounds like you just kind of listen to your guidance, but maybe the chemtrails are supposed to be there because there's a message in that too. It's not a perfect world.
Oh, no, I think what I'm saying is it's chemtrails, it's fracking, it's GMO, it's fluoride in the water. What this is a film for children. And it's basically saying, I've kind of given up on your folks, so we're going to talk to you now, and you're going to have to get your folks to wake up. That's what this movie is. And, we're at such a tipping point, and I'm not going to any fear-mongering at all, but I called somebody in Boulder today. He's actually a minister of unity, and he said people are really, really losing it right now. And I wasn't sure because I don't have my finger on the pulse anymore. I moved to the mountains. I'm on a lake in the woods, really quiet. But I'm just wondering, how bad is it down there? And it was really interesting. I can't imagine how it could be easy for anyone right now other than really wealthy people who just don't care. Mm-hmm. We're just in a time right now where people should be talking about the messages the ETs are leaving in the crop circles. That's like step one. The crop circles are like sticky notes in the fields. Why in the fields? Well, 2 to 3 months, they're going to be there, and they're going to hope that filmmakers, foolish little girls like me, will go on those planes and take pictures and share them with the world.
But I think it's interesting because, I mean, at one point in time, there was a whole lot of interest in crop circles, and recently, nothing. Your material, but it really has lost the public eye, or at least it seems that way in the United States.
Well, Justin Timberlake brought sexy back. I'm bringing crop circles back because I've been in enough of them, and I'm also tying together how timely their messages are. I think they're giving us a lot of information, and I also am really appreciating the fact that they're not stopping. They've been doing the crop circles for hundreds of years. We have records of them back to the 1700s, and we have a lot of NASA images now being brought forth, thanks to Julian Assange and all the different anonymous groups. But, we're seeing a lot of NASA photos of crop circles from the 50s, from the 60s. And when I do public lectures, which I'm doing a lot more of now, people in the audience in America often say, which happened this last weekend, oh, yeah, we had a few in Iowa. And somebody else said, yeah, we have them up in Alaska. And then we asked the crowd, has anybody heard this on the news? No.
No.
So the problem is caught between the people, the experiencers, and the audience, which is the world, and the problem is the news. And now they're really buying and selling it up. I don't even want to go into it, but I mean, the news is basically bought and paid for, and now TV is getting so dark. Thank God we have the Internet.
Oh, but, no kidding.
The funny thing about distraction and debunking is that all it is a waste of your time. When I'm making movies, I do it all by intuitive guidance. And when somebody says, oh, you've got to interview the debunkers, I look at them and go, I wouldn't waste the time.
Well, it's like, but, no, I don't.
Right.
No, I don't.
Right. So the funny thing was, I chose not to do that, but I did choose to take advice and go interview a farmer that mows down the fields. And, I'd probably toss it in the edit, but I figured I should go do it just to appease my friends in England. So I get this farmer set up for 1 o'clock. I meet him there. I bring a friend to assist me. And my camera would not lock on the tripod. It would not fit on the tripod. It was the damnedest thing. I'd never seen it do that. So I was like, So I kind of held it, and I put the mics on, and neither of them would work. And the farmer's looking at his watch, and it was 20 minutes in his hand. He said, well, mate, I'm really almost scared. So I said to the farmer, tell you what, skip the tripod. I'll just get around in your barn. Let's just go inside. We'll get in your barn, hit a light on, and I'll interview you in there because the wind won't be blowing in the barn. So I can use the interior mic on the camera. Let's just do that. 5 minutes left. I want your interview. Can't go in the barn, he says. I said, why not? He said, we just sprayed in there. I said, what'd you spray? He said, well, we're just not going in there. And I said, well, isn't that where the wheat goes, the food? He said, yeah, we just sprayed the wheat too. I said, so you sprayed the wheat and the barn with something that you won't go in the barn. He said, mate, time's up, got to go, and he took off.
There was a UFO in the barn.
No.
I'm just kidding.
No. What it was is chemicals. Probably Monsanto. I mean, I don't want to be saying a name on the air, but it was some kind of pretty chemicals where he wouldn't go in his own barn. And my first
But then he'll
was,
sell
oh
it and they'll feed it to us or the cows or whatever.
Exactly.
Ugh.
So, there's a part of me. Oh, so anyway, as soon as the farmer drove away, I looked at my friend and I said, wow, that was really weird. And I knew I didn't want to do the interview, but I was willing. So I said to her, I got a weird feeling, and I took the camera out of the trunk, and it slid right on the tripod and locked down. And I said, whoa, we started laughing, and I put the microphones up, and both of them were ding, ding, perfectly.
Well, speaking about
energy,
weird
Rita.
things like that, I've heard stories of, because as you probably know, I have done ghost hunting and stuff. And when you go on investigations that have a lot of active energy, if you have a camera, the battery dies, the batteries in your recorder dies. I mean, all kinds of weird stuff can happen. And I've heard stories that similar kinds of things happen at crop circles. Has that been your experience too?
Yeah, I never had my gear go down, but I watched a lot of other people talk about it. And the gear is another interesting piece. Like all of us have different personalities. I use a pendulum. I always have a pendulum in my purse, in my bedroom, on my desk. It's just my tool to spirit where I can get answers and feel like I've got an effortless communication. Some people come in with magnetometers, the scientific guys that want to, see if they're getting a different field, and some people come in with dowsing rods. So there's different things that people experience. But I want to talk about why England gets more crop circles than anywhere else in the world.
That was a question on my list, so go for it.
Yeah, there's more here every summer, at least for the last 30 years, documented in Wiltshire, England. And I'll repeat that that's the area that's got Stonehenge out to the east, Glastonbury off to the west, and the center of the phenomenon is the oldest stone circle in all of Europe, which is the Avebury Stone Circle. And near Avebury is Silbury Hill, which is this rounded mound. We all think looks like there might be a hidden pyramid underneath. It's just a beautiful shape with a soft round top. But people have been coming to this Silbury Hill for 7,000 years to do ritual and to walk around the Avebury Stone Circle that has a moat dug on the outside of it. And when we realize how many thousands of years ago, and talk about, they had to have been doing that with shoulder bones of, wild animals. It's really amazing to see these megaliths of stone that, we're still, of course, questioning how they got the stones up on Stonehenge. So in this area, there's a lot of magic. There's a lot of churches. There's a lot of Mother Mary sites, Cathar locations. I mean, there's sacred sites everywhere. And when we have a ley line map that we look at that has the lines directly between all the sacred sites, that's the ley line map. At the end of the summer, when we put push pins in each of the locations that the crop circles have happened, 96 or 7% of those crop circles are sitting not only on a ley line, but many of them are sitting on a crossing of two ley lines.
Two ley lines. Interesting.
So that's
one of the things, let me just throw this in. I had Maria Wheatley. Do you know who she is? She lives in the UK and studies the Avery and the ley lines and stuff. I mean, she lives there, and that's what she does the tours and everything. And I think you'll understand this, hopefully. But we got into this whole conversation about the stone circle and how there were an energy field going around it, kind of like the Ida and Pygnalia of that goes down your spine. Do you know those words?
Mm-hmm.
And so she was saying that that's what was happening around some of these stone circles. And I think, all right, this is just my opinion, definitely my opinion, that, they were some kind of like energy generators or capacitors or something that don't work today because they're not intact, and so it doesn't really surprise me if, to have a lot of activity there because it's just like this one giant energy grid happening there.
And they're firing up the grid. Yeah, I think that they're firing up the grid. There's this artist in the Netherlands, Rob Meeks, and he takes every crop circle image and he puts color to it, and then he lights up the cross sections, like the ley lines of the crop circle. And what I see when I look at his art is it looks almost sometimes like if there were spaceships, that these would be different lighting formations of the ships. It's really interesting. And again, you have to be looking at the art. But, the crop circles, in my opinion, when I sit in a circle of researchers that have been doing this for 10, 20, 30 years, and I've only been in it 10 years, but very, very devoted. You lay one photo in, and all six of us will see something different, and everybody's correct. And again, this is just a perception, but what I think is that each of us, looking at the image, will see something different depending on our frequency, our vibration, our evolutional locator, of how our system is functioning and perceiving images and the world. We're going to see something different than somebody else. So when people say, what is that crop circle? I think everybody's going to get their own thing out of it. What do you think about that?
Well, I think that that's a very valid point, but I'm just going to kind of bump it up in a different way. Has anyone ever looked at the imagery to see if they are being designed by different people? And I'll be more specific. You can tell a Michelangelo from a Raphael, and you can tell, and from a Da Vinci. You can just look at the art and tell the authorship of the painting just based on the style. Not necessarily the picture, but the style. And I'm wondering if anybody has ever looked at the crop circles to see if there is a signature, an artistic signature, because some of them have very circular patterns, but then some of them have, like those little kind of linear, like looks like a Mayan calendar kind of picture. And I haven't ever looked at it, but it just came to me. And sometimes, those little spiritual insights just come in and I just share them.
Yeah, well, I think you're onto something there. Many of the crop circles have images that people recognize, but every now and then we get something that I think is kind of what you're referring to, would be possibly a different species. And what we had, I'm trying to remember if it was 2010, I think, there were two different huge formations. One was 1,500 feet long, and they were an ancient language that hadn't been seen in hundreds of years. Now keep in mind that this is 3 hours of darkness, and then people are driving by and can see if there was people in the field. I don't think it's humanly possible. And these were ancient languages. I mean, it's been really some fascinating ones that I think are very outer worldly.
Well, one of the things that leads me to believe that there's something more going on than hoaxes is just the fact that crop circles have been kind of out of the limelight. And if they're not the big fad, then why would people go out and do them? They would just lose their interest. Wouldn't that make sense to you?
Yeah, the lost interest is in the press. The press just
but if there's
magazine articles.
But if there's no press, there's no hoaxers. Because if they're not going to get their day in the sun, then why go out there and spend the whole night doing something like that if no one's going to take notice?
Right.
For the hoaxers, not for the crop circles in general.
Yeah, I couldn't tell you, but I will tell you a funny story about some guys that I met that were making crop circles late at night. I had been hiking through the fields all day. I was exhausted, and I went and had soup at the Black Horse Inn in Wiltshire, like 10:30 at night, and I was so lucky they were still serving. And these burly guys come kicking the door in, and they go up to the bar, and they each grab 2 beers, one for each hand, and of course they sit right behind me. And at first I was like, oh, God. And then I started listening to their conversation, which was pretty hysterical. I saw them walk in, and the 2 guys were laughing hysterically, and the other guy was totally wet from head to toe. And what happened was they were out making a crop circle, and a ball of light whizzed past them, very close. And they all screamed and ran out of the field, and the one guy wet his pants. So they were hysterical at the car, totally scared, and they hopped in the car and came to the bar. Sat down right behind me. So the people that are making crop circles are starting to talk to each other. And the common knowledge is that many of them have not only seen the balls of light, many of them have also seen the shadow being, the jinn folk. And I heard you talking about it at the beginning of the show, the shadow people.
Mm-hmm.
And what the ones are that are being seen in the crop circles, coincidentally, many people are seeing the same ones, and they say they have like a long coat and a hood and a dark shadow, and they weren't people that came into the crop circle to make the crop circle. So I think the human circle makers are starting to lessen because they're getting scared. They're meeting the real circle makers who they've been patient long enough, and now they're just going, come on, get on your way. So even though the world was confused that these two old guys, Doug and Dave, made all the crop circles and didn't go home, go back to sleep in the 80s and 90s, one of those guys has been dead almost 20 years now. And we had 69 crop circles in England. So yeah, there's some teams that are active, but there's a lot of real crop circles.
But haven't the researchers like yourself gotten to the point that you can actually tell just based on the way that the plants are laying or the deformation of the plants, you know, at the bend point, whether one is real or one is fake, or, you know, other pieces of evidence that are either there or not there based on historical data?
Well, you can look at visible evidence. And the visible evidence is that when people come in with boards in a row, the wheat is broken. And when the wheat is not broken, it has like a bubble, which we call a bent node. And the bent node is very different looking than the broken wheat because it has actually burned and expanded. And a lot of times it's darker in color, and you can see like burn marks. And the only thing that they have found that could reproduce it scientifically is a microwave. But how are you going to get a microwave big enough to lay down acres of wheat flawlessly at different levels with centerpieces?
Well, you know, skip the microwave part. You know, I just can't even imagine, you know, like when they were just doing the big round ones, I could see somebody doing that. You know what I mean? Just conceptually, you know, it didn't look that complicated. But ones that are being presented today, I mean, they are pieces of art. And I just can't even, I can't even imagine if you had that like on a piece of paper, like a big piece of paper that sat on your desk, and you had like your color pencils or your crayons, and you had to color it in like a mandala, that it would take you hours just to do that, you know, to make it perfect and stay inside the lines, much less go out into a field and make it and stay inside the lines with your little rope and stick, you know, in the dark. With no light, you know, I mean, because it doesn't sound like, you know, or they apparently, if they are hoaxing them, they're not out there with like floodlights to measure anything. I mean, I just can't imagine.
Yeah, well, they haven't been caught. And I think the more important and interesting subject is that I have actually caught them on film. I've actually caught the doorway and watched the balls spin around. And many, many people over there of conscious wisdom, they all know that these things are real, that they're choosing this area not only because of the sacred sites, but also the druid energy. The people are very earth-bound, very wise, very deep there. And the circle makers know it, and they come back year after year to the same area. And I just feel really blessed to be a part of it. It is an amazing place to go and a stunning sight to see.
What do the farmers think about having crop circles show up in their fields? I mean, does it piss them off? Do they think it's good? You know, what's their sentiments toward the whole thing?
Well, I told you I tried to interview one, and I didn't get the interview. So I don't. Well,
that was
really
a spirit
know.
thing. Come on, you know that.
Yeah, but I think that generally what they don't like is the people that don't know the crop circle etiquette. people that walk on their wheat, damage their fields, and leave trash, or God forbid, put a cigarette butt out. So I think that is a problem. But generally, the few of the farmers that I met felt kind of delighted, honored, and special.
Are there, I don't really know how big that area is that you're talking about, where there were the 69 crop circles last year. But are there like certain farms that seem to get hit every year?
Yes. There are certain areas that we have our regular overlooks where we like to stay out there, night after night. There will always be someone on the overlook over East Field or the overlook in different areas. Yeah, we've got our regular places where they do have crop circles usually year after year on a regular basis. Some fields get 2 or 3 every summer.
Wow. All right. Because I'm just looking at the clock, so we have about 5 minutes. So let me throw this question out. I mean, because it sounds like the majority of your research has been, the crop circles in the UK. But I would assume you can talk a little on the crop circles that have been found in other places, in other countries. When you've seen images of those, have you seen images of those? And how do they compare to the ones that are in the UK, design-wise, style-wise, et cetera, et cetera?
In 2008, I think it was, I decided to go to Italy, because Italy was trailing second. It had like 29 in England already and 26 in Italy, and I thought, whoa, close second, I'm going to go and see what it's like elsewhere. So I did the research, and even though I don't speak Italian, I hoped my Spanish would get me through. So I went to Italy with images and a map, and I tried to find 4 different crop circles. And I found 2 of them, and it was not easy at all. And when I found them, they were dead, dry, free of energy. I mean, nothing exciting. I was so disappointed, I flew back to England really quickly. So that's Italy. And it might have just been, it was in June, it wasn't in August. So I couldn't understand why it was so dry, but there was nobody there. It wasn't exciting. It was nothing like they were in England. And in this area in England, there's so many of us that come together year after year that it's kind of like a family reunion, and the circle makers know it. But I don't know anywhere else that there's lots of them. There was one in America this summer, but it's barely worth talking about. It was in Wilbur, Washington, and I called the newspaper that was covering the story going in, and a different TV news, Channel 3, then going out in Wilbur, Washington. And I called both of them trying to say, please tell the truth about crop circles. And this image that you have, you've got a major one there. The people that own the farm say that they've had one in the field near there every other year for the last bunch of years. So to me, I think that's very serious and probably a real one near a sacred site. And sure enough, the press going in and the news going out both did lousy stories that didn't give it any credit at all. That's why we're not hearing about crop circles. I think that generally the news is not ready for disclosure. It's such a big subject, and the veil is falling. The word apocalypse that we were looking at the end of 2012, people thought it meant, earthquakes, disasters, and everything. And what the word really means is the veil will fall. And that's really what's happening now in this transition. And again, this is just my perception. But what we just went through December 21st, all these predictions, it was kind of like Y2K all over again. Nothing happened. Whew, thank God.
Hey, we had Happy Mayan Fool's Day on this show because we aired live on December 21st. So we were celebrating Happy Mayan Fool's Day.
Mayan Fool's Day. But the truth is the veil has fallen and the corrupt government is being exposed. And all the dark forces really are running for the hills and being arrested and being talked about and brought public. And what's happening is it is a slow ascension, but it is happening. And again, this is only my perception, but because I go to the International UFO Congress every year, and I'm good friends with most of the researchers that really have their finger on the pulse right now, we have a lot of hybrid humans. We have been mingling, I believe, human DNA with ET DNA for decades. And now a lot of those people are here. And, you know, if we look at the political system and all the problems across the world, I mean, being realistic, I can't imagine any hope for us unless we have some higher energy starting to percolate amongst us and shift the vibration of what's going on now. And I really think that the Mayan calendar was pretty right on. You know, that we really are in a major transition. And as soon as disclosure happens, where we all realize that we're not alone here, and that we do have a lot of higher dimensional beings amongst us, then, you know, it's going to be really nice to stop drilling for oil and to start living in harmony again. And I think that's what's coming. I think it's really close. But I think people are going to have to go through a little bit more of the growing period and, you know, basically all of our own darknesses are being brought to the surface to be healed. Do you see that?
I mean, I do. I just don't know if we're smart enough to get out of our own way. I mean, there's a lot of really smart people, and then there's a lot of not smart people, you know. But Patty, the music is going to come up, and I want to give you a chance to talk about, you know, if people wanted to get your crop circle video or any of your other videos, where would they go to do that, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera?
Yes. Well, the thing about the movies is that they are all firsthand experience. It's not old, drummed-up things that you've heard before. What's going on in the crop circles is very real. And for 5 different years, I filmed live in the crop circles, and it's pretty alarming. I worked with the balls of light. They let me film them, and so in my movies, you can see them up close and personal. In the beginning of my movie, The Wake Up Call, 2010 update, I show you right in the first 5 minutes of the movie 2 balls of light going over a crop circle and dropping the wheat into a crop circle in seconds. I do believe that's how they're really happening. And right before they laid the wheat down, there is a band of communication between those 2 balls of light. In the movies that I brought forward, which are on my website,
Patty, the
Greer,
the music's going to come up.
PattyGreer.com.
And that's where they
can... If you really want to know who's making the crop circles, these are the movies.
And that's where they can go and purchase the video, et cetera, et cetera?
Yes, they can purchase DVDs, and within a week I'm going to have streaming of all the movies on the website, PattyGreer.com.
Thank you, Patty. Wonderful conversation. I think we'll have to have you back and talk about hybrid energy, hybrid people. Yeah. Woo! Okay.
All right. Well, good night, everybody. Stay happy, stay well, and keep your eyes to the skies.
Okay. And I think the music's going to come up right now, and we are going to go to break. And after we come back, we'll be talking to Ed. I have to look at his name or I cannot say it. Comeric, about exopolitics and alien contact. We'll be back. Thanks, Patty. Her website, PattyGreer.com. We'll be right back.
Just Energy Radio with your host, Dr. Rita Louise.